Howdy ho, Andrew, aka Kelpier here. Welcome to the Onion Buns and welcome to another episode of my Sunday gaming video. So, we're going to take a break from my MMORPGs. Don't worry, we'll get back to it. The next one up will be Ultima Online, and I'm sure that one's going to ruffle a few feathers. But let's take a break on it. For the last 6 months, I've been introducing you to the Exodus. I finished reading the book and started on my second playthrough of the audiobook because this old head just doesn't retain stuff like it used to. So repetition is the way to get it to sink in. But I loved the book. I really did. And it left in a cliffhanger. I don't know if there's another book coming out or if that's setting up the game or what the story is. We're just going to have to wait and see on that. And I do have a couple dev diaries left to do till we're up to date on it. But before we get to those, I thought it would be interesting today. A lot more YouTube creators are coming out with not stories, but videos on Exodus now. It's picking up some steam finally. More and more people seem to be getting interested in it. And I came across a video that I haven't actually watched, but the title interests me. It was Exodus versus the Expanse, which is the next Mass Effect killer. And I like the title. I like the concept of the title. So I thought it would make a great Sunday video if I do a react video on it. It's 2 months old, so it's been out there for a bit. And, you know, as I said in my last Friday's react, because I do a react video every Friday, I said, in my opinion, when you put out a video, you got a certain time frame to get your viewership, and then it dies off. It slows down to a trickle, really. Now, obviously, if you're a big channel, that trickle's going to be, 10, 20,000 views. For a channel like mine, after the first month, I might get 1 or 2 more views on that video moving forward. And yeah, so I've never heard of this channel or anything like that, but I like the premise of his video. So I want to see what he has to say. And I'm going to react to it because I rarely find that I agree with all these people all the time on every instance. So chances are I'm going to have some differing opinions, or, maybe I'm not. Who knows? Maybe I'll be surprised, just like you. But as I said on Friday, I want to get into doing more react videos because in 2026, I plan to try to attempt to do live streaming. And react videos, live streaming is basically react videos. So I want to get in the mode, in the mindset of doing it. So with that all said, how about we get started? Alrighty, Exodus versus the Expanse, which is the Mass Effect killer. Now, right off the bat, even though I like the title, I don't think Exodus or the Expanse are Mass Effect killers. I just want to be clear off the bat. The only company that's going to kill Mass Effect is BioWare and EA. Those are the guys that are going to kill Mass Effect if anyone kills Mass Effect. I think Exodus and the Expanse are building off of what we got in Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. Not Andromeda, bleep Andromeda, but 1, 2, and 3, I love those games. I absolutely love them. And I think Exodus specifically, but also the Expanse, are building off of what Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 created. So I just wanted to clear that up. All right, let's get a start.
If you've been with me for a while, then you know it's no secret that I prefer fantasy to science fiction. But it's also blatantly obvious to anyone who takes the time to notice that we've had a serious dearth of sci-fi RPGs.
So right off the bat, I agree with them. I prefer science fiction to fantasy. That wasn't always the case. Back in the 80s, I loved fantasy. And I ate it up. 80s to, I'd say the mid-90s. Maybe even the late 90s. But I burned out on fantasy because computer games, books, everything was fantasy. It's fantasy, fantasy, fantasy. And it got to the point where I needed something different. I wanted something different. So I started looking into the science fiction genre. And there's always been a limited selection of quality science fiction RPGs. So I agree with them.
Especially in the past decade plus. Most RPGs that are released are fantasy, of some sort or another, and very few to any are science fiction. In fact, the only sci-fi RPG that came out in recent years is Starfield by Bethesda, but I'm reluctant to even mention it for a variety of reasons, as it is A, just not a good game, B, has terrible RPG elements and is a boring NASA punk setting, and C, is not really the type of RPG people envision when they reminisce about, say, Mass Effect, i.e., it was not in any way a space opera. So yeah.
Absolutely agree. The RPG elements in Starfield are not great. They're not. And the writing is even worse. You can go back. I've done 2 different videos on Starfield now, and I will link to them in the description of this video, but you are free to go back and check them out. I think I have a little calmer opinion of Starfield than what he just laid out. It doesn't sound like he's found anything relevant or of quality in Starfield. I just found a lot of negatives that overloaded the little bit of positives that Starfield had. So my opinion, I think, is a little bit different than what he's stating on Starfield, but he's right. The RPG elements in Starfield were not good because the writing was not good. It really came down to that. And I'm going to say it, I'm just going to say it, and you can hate me for saying it, but politics played a big role in Starfield. Like, they intentionally made all the women unattractive, plain, boring. Like, you don't get those, and I said this in my last video, you don't get those legendary beauties of Triss and Yennefer and Shani from the Witcher series. You don't get Liara and Ashley and, oh, what's her name now? Oh, I forget her name now, but from Mass Effect, you know, you don't get those. You get very plain, very dull, very intentionally unattractive female companions in Starfield. But it wasn't just your companions. Like, you can go through the entire game. Everybody is plain, homely, ugly. Like, it's like the entire galaxy is devoid of a good-looking character. So, and I think that was intentional by Bethesda for political reasons. And, you know, while I don't normally bitch about it, I mean, one of the first characters you meet, just he announces he's gay, and my husband. And then you go to New Atlantis, and it's my husband, my wife, my husband. But it's like, I remember telling a friend, it's like, with all these gay characters, how did humankind even repopulate? It was pushing a political agenda. And like I said, normally I can just put that in the back of my mind and I'll just keep playing and whatever, it's woke, you know, and I think we've all gotten a little bit used to wokeness in the last decade, and it's starting to die, thank God, but you know, it became the norm, and if you wanted to play the games, you had to put up with that. I'm really hoping Exodus and the Expanse just focus on story and characters and leave all of the real world politics out of the games. I really am. But we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, there really has not been much on offer for quite a while, but that will be changing soon. First, less than 2 years ago, we found out that there's a new studio composed of some of the key OG veterans from old school BioWare called Archetype Entertainment, working on a new IP that they've created called Exodus, and extremely recently we found out that Owlcat, currently the world's #1 studio for making CRPGs, has been working on their own sci-fi title set in the Expanse universe.
Owlcat, I'm going to be interested because he's right. They're known for CRPGs, which are not really my cup of tea, honestly. I like Mass Effect. I like The Witcher. I like Deus Ex. I'm not a shooter guy, but I like this, or Cyberpunk even. I like the action RPG, I must admit. But don't be mixed up. It has action, but it's still got to have story. Story is still what draws me the most in. So they can have all the action in the world. If the story is crap, the story is crap, and so be it. But I'm going to be interested in how Owlcat handles doing an action RPG with the Expanse franchise.
It's thus not unreasonable to think that we might be at an inflection point in the timeline of sci-fi RPGs, as both games, Exodus and The Expanse, are in myriad ways spiritual successors to Mass Effect.
Yep.
And at least potentially promise as much of the adrenaline, drama, and adventure that Mass Effect once delivered.
Oh,
and if these titles turn out to be financial successes, then it is very likely that other studios and publishers will seek to copy their success. In this sense, a lot is on the line for the sci-fi space opera genre. But as similar as both The Expanse and Exodus could potentially be to Mass Effect, they are and will be different. And more importantly, although the comparison between the only two up-and-coming sci-fi space operas makes a lot of sense and is logical, these two games are not the same and will be substantially different in a number of ways. On top of that, the studios making the two games, Archetype Entertainment and Owlcat Games respectively, are very different from each other as well, and it would be useful to compare the two and talk about some key differences. So let's begin with Exodus, because it was the first one to be revealed, and I have covered it a fair bit on the channel. Exodus is a game being made by ex-BioWare devs, and specifically some of the OGs such as James Olin, Chad Robertson, and the writer Drew Karpyshyn. On top of that, they have the sci-fi author giant Peter Hamilton advising them on the project. Archetype Entertainment was founded by James Olin, but is owned by Wizards of the Coast, and the game will be published by Wizards of the Coast, something we may come back to later.
The Wizards of the Coast connection worries me. I won't lie. It worries me. I play tabletop D&D, and I've played it for a lot of years. I came into tabletop role-playing games in Chivalry and Sorcery back in the, I guess it would have been the early 80s, mid 80s, I guess. And then I shifted into box set first edition of D&D and went from there. My favorite D&D is second edition, bar none. But to play nowadays, you have to play the modern D&D. So we're playing 5th edition, and I mean, it's still D&D at its core, but there's so much about that I don't like. They've brought real world politics into D&D, and I don't agree with that. It's like fantasy is an escape. Sci-fi is an escape. Leave the real world politics out of it. Now, I'm not saying I want left-wing or right-wing or moderate politics left out. I want all real world politics left out. And Wizards of the Coast is one of those companies that has really, really, really tripled down on pushing real world politics into their games. So I'm really concerned about their connection. I won't lie. I'm hoping that Olin and everybody, they have enough experience having gone through the BioWare height and then the fall when EA bought it, that they can push back and say, hey, this is our company and this is what you bought and this is what we're going to deliver, and leave your agenda out of it. Like, that's what I'm hoping, but I have absolutely no way to prove or disprove that. I'm just going to have to hope for when the game comes out. Like, thus far, I've been super stoked for Exodus. I love everything I'm hearing. I love everything I'm seeing. As I said, I've read the book and I'm rereading it, and I really, really enjoyed the book. And yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see. But I won't lie. I am very worried about the Wizards of the Coast connection.
The key difference between Exodus and the Expanse is that Exodus is very much a from ground up created IP, with James Olin being its chief architect. It's clear that he's been working with a great deal of passion and dedication on the project, which is not just the video game itself, but also a tabletop RPG, with a player's handbook, and a soon-to-be-announced encyclopedia, and yet another book. Clearly, the plans for Exodus are big and wide-ranging, and it looks like they're striving for the stratosphere. Exodus is also more hard science-bound than Mass Effect ever was, which, let's be honest, was largely space magic. And although there's always an element of space magic, i.e. the inexplicable, the entire theme and plot of Exodus is predicated on the notion of the physics of time dilation, predicted by Einstein's theory of relativity, and the hard limits that the modern physics of our world have established, i.e. you cannot exceed the speed of light in any way, shape, or form, something referred to in the setting as the unbreakable rule. In the simplest of terms, when you travel at near light speed, time flows normally, but to an outside observer at rest, your clock ticks slower, because your high velocity steals, so to speak, from time to preserve the speed of light. This serves as the fulcrum of storytelling in Exodus, as you play a so-called traveler, which is basically a type of space scavenger that gathers ancient technology to aid humanity broadly, and more specifically their own dynasties. The player's handbook even lists off specific ranges of near-light speed travel and its effect on time dilation, ranging from the passage of days and weeks to decades. And this will play an essential role in determining story outcomes in the game.
So I have spoken very extensively on this, that I believe the time dilation is going to create so much replayability in Exodus, because you're going to, well, I made this choice here and this person died and the story went off in this direction, but now on my next playthrough, I'm going to make a different choice and this person's going to live, and now we're going to go off in this direction. And I'm going to be very interested in how they handle it. I mean, in the past, even with Mass Effect to a large degree, your choices really didn't matter. Like, you got 5 choices, and maybe the person you're talking to reacts to you a different way depending on which choice, but the story still goes in this linear step by step by step with very few variations. Like Mass Effect 1 had where you had the suicide mission for Kaidan and Ashley, but again, you lost Kaidan or you lost Ashley, but the story still went step by step by step. Then you had, do you kill Rex or not? Okay. In the instance, it mattered, but you still went step by step by step. And then in Mass Effect 2, okay, if you didn't kill Rex, he's in charge of the Krogan. If you did kill Rex, somebody else is in charge of the Krogan, and it's the same story. So there was an illusion of choices matter. Like Mass Effect was tried very hard to do this, but then when EA took over, they just, by Mass Effect 2, they eliminated those choices. You know, like the Rachni were supposed to be a massive choice, but they were pretty much background fodder by Mass Effect 2. You know, and there was a number of other loose ends that they tied up in Mass Effect 2 that they were left open so that they could expand on the story, but EA decided, no, we're just going to tie them up, and we're going to, a very linear storytelling. There was an illusion of choice. Your choices really didn't matter. And we see that throughout most games. So I'm going to be very interested, because Olin and them, they've said that's not the case anymore. What you choose determines your direction. So I'm going to be very interested when this game comes out on how that plays out. How much of that is real and how much of that is just upsell to get people interested.
The players often having wildly different outcomes, at least according to the developers. The timeline of Exodus is also relatively long. Over 40,000 years ago, there was a crisis on Earth and humans left the planet on giant arc ships, traveling at near light speed. The first humans that arrived planted so-called green world signals so that others could follow in their footsteps. But because of the nature of space, travel, and near light speed, As more and more humans arrived, tens of thousands of years had passed for the first arrivees, who in time became known as the Celestials, who are the
other thing I'm going to mention, because I said bleep Andromeda, but a lot of Exodus, what we know, reminds me of, I guess, the core Andromeda concept. But what I'm hoping for, at least, is Exodus is Mass Effect Andromeda done properly. Because Mass Effect Andromeda was not done properly. Not in the slightest. But I see a lot of similarities from Exodus, like the Travelers going after the Remnant. Well, in Andromeda, a lot of the storyline was you were going after Remnant tech. So there's a correlation there. And I like to think that Exodus is Mass Effect Andromeda done properly. That's how I'm approaching it. We're going to see. You know, like right now, it's all supposition, it's all speculation. So I can give you my opinion, I can give you my ideas, but that's all they are. They're opinions and ideas. I have no factual information or basis for these opinions and ideas other than my own hopes and desires.
aliens of Exodus, who through a combination of environment, to a lesser extent, and a much greater extent genetic engineering, have evolved into completely new forms that are sometimes more alien than many of the run-of-the-mill aliens in sci-fi. And you also have such things as changelings, which are genetically repurposed humans and animals, with often incredibly bizarre forms, as well as the awakened, sentient animals who serve important functions ranging from being merchants to medics to war machines to much more. And in the middle of this you play June, a traveler, as mentioned, from an important dynasty seeking to save his world from a deadly technovirus. Even before the game's release, Exodus goes pretty deep, and the world building involved and dedication of the people creating this universe is nothing short of impressive. And of the two games, it definitely has a somewhat greater Mass Effect vibe to it. The Expanse, on the other hand, has a much more grounded vibe to it. And I've been recently learning more about the setting, and currently am in the process of watching Season 1 of the series. The Expanse is a hard sci-fi universe set in a future where humanity has colonized the solar system.
If you've never watched or read the books, I strongly suggest you watch the TV series and read the books. Now, like any adaptation, it's not 100% from the books, but they capture the spirit and the essence of the books. And that's, you know, if you go watch the Witcher TV series, it doesn't have anything to do with the books anymore. You go watch Rings of Power, it's got nothing to do with Tolkien. It uses the character's name and it uses the locations, but it's got nothing to do with Tolkien. Wheel of Time, same thing. Like, Wheel of Time is my favorite fantasy book series of all time, and I could not watch. I watched the first 7 episodes of Wheel of Time. I shut it off in season 1, and I never went back because it was an abomination of what the books were. The Expanse, they stayed pretty faithful to the books. Not perfect. They made changes like any adaptation's going to make, you know, be it for budgetary, for time restraints, whatever. But they stayed fairly faithful to the book series. So if you've never watched the Expanse TV series or read the books, go read them, go watch them. You will not be disappointed. You have my guarantee on that.
But remains divided among 3 factions: Earth, a resource-strained superpower, so to speak; Mars, a militarized republic focused on terraforming; and the Belt, an oppressed underclass of asteroid miners who have evolved somewhat differently from the others in terms of language and even height. The real space opera aspect kicks in when the discovery of the proto-molecule, an alien bioweapon, triggers a Cold War, leading to the opening of the so-called Ring Gate, a wormhole network connected to thousands of habitable worlds. Some of the themes that are explored are political intrigue, class struggle, and generally speaking, humanity's expansion to the cosmos within the framework of realistic physics that includes zero-G situations. It was originally a book series by James S. A. Corey, which was later adapted into a TV show and now the video game. In a nutshell, The Expanse is about humanity's infancy stage as participants on the cosmic stage. Now, I'd say in terms of world building, from a personal point of view at least, I prefer Exodus over The Expanse. The terms of the game are just more epic, with the powerful effects of time dilation, which will be determinative of the story, leading to widely different story outcomes, tens of thousands of years of ancient empires and current-day empires, and human divergence in terms of radical speciation, along with plenty of mystery such as the Elohim. And
okay, I just got to cut in. I love that armor. I love that armor. That looks awesome.
Several other factors playing into the mix. I might add that I'm somewhat biased because I have read the novel attached to the game, as well as many other sources of information, such as the player's handbook, among other things. In short, I know a lot more about it, but I really find the idea of genetically engineered humans becoming aliens, with millennial civilizations hiding world-shattering technology behind them, very intriguing. Now, obviously, when it comes to The Expanse, I know less about it, but even given that, it's almost certainly going to be more contained. Sure, on a personal level, at this current moment in time, I know less about it, but we already know that it's going to be more constrained and limited to a small area of our solar system. That in and of itself does not mean it will be a bad game by any stretch, but in terms of tone and setting, I would just say that Exodus is more interesting.
Okay, for the first game of The Expanse, that's true. Because it's my understanding that The Expanse takes place, I'm trying to remember now. Well, you find the proto-molecule, so it's the first season. About halfway through the first season, you're playing a different character than the characters in the Expanse TV show or books. So it's a standalone story, but it's mimicking the same time period as the Expanse story. Now, here's where he's wrong, though, because he's never watched the show and he's never read the books. This is a spoiler, and if you don't want to hear the spoiler, I will put chapter markers so that you can skip this spoiler. So if you don't want to hear the spoiler, jump ahead now. All right, so the spoiler in The Expanse is the proto-molecule opens up gates that you go through. And these gates take you to an infinite locations of different galaxies and universes. So, well, the Expanse game is going to be stuck in the Sol system, basically, at the start. By the end of the Expanse game, I guarantee you those gates are going to be there. And if there's a second Expanse game, it could be 100 million times bigger than Exodus universe. But you wouldn't know that if you never watched the TV series or read the book. So, as I said, that's a spoiler. All right, and we're back.
And does effectively come closer to Mass Effect in this respect, as we'll be basically getting some kind of alien squad member, whether that's a changeling or celestial, and possibly even some kind of robot or cyborg squad member. All that said, both The Expanse and Exodus have something in common, which is ultimately that they are both very human-centric. In Exodus, you play June, a traveler seeking to save his dynasty in conflict with other humans, and very likely Celestials. In The Expanse, you play a Pinkwater mercenary that ends up in trouble with other humans as well as a mysterious alien weapon, but yeah, ultimately, it's all very human. But humanity, as it were, is a topic for a separate video. Despite all of this, I think it's not exactly the content of games with respect to world building that's most critical here, even though that's obviously important, but rather how it's delivered and executed. And here we come to the question of the developer making the game. Who is the better bet going forward? Archetype or Owlcat? It might sound like an odd question to ask, and one can easily enjoy both Exodus and The Expanse, but inevitably, comparisons will be made and drawn between the two games, as well as the developers, so why not do that here? At first glance, it might seem like Archetype clearly has the advantage over Owlcat when it comes to making AAA action sci-fi RPGs. After all, the key figures behind the game are BioWare OGs who've worked on not just Dragon Age and Baldur's Gate, but also substantial parts of Mass Effect. James Olin is the mastermind behind the universe of Exodus and has a clear vision of what the game is supposed to be. Archetype has the background, the vision, and in theory, the experience and people to create an amazing game. But that's not the full story. The team at Archetype have not produced a proper game in a very long time. And much of the hype, and I have to admit I've participated in the hype too, is based upon what has come to be fallacious thinking to my mind in terms of thinking of OG developers as coming back to deliver salvation to us in the form of a game that once again knocks our socks off.
Yeah, he's right. But I mean, why do we need salvation? We need salvation because, let's face it, the quality of the games over the last 20 years have been in the crapper. I mean, I love RPGs. That is my go-to genre. And I've found some games that I really love, but games that I didn't love. I tried Dragon Age 2. I thought it was crap. I tried Dragon Age Inquisition. I have tried, no word of a lie, 10 to 11 times to finish that game, and I've never been able to finish it because I hate my companions. I want to kill my companions myself. I don't want to travel with them. I don't want to do quests for them. I want to kill them because the writing is terrible. Mass Effect Andromeda. Interesting concept. Made absolutely no sense. You know, it's like, oh, well, the Reapers won in Mass Effect and the arcs, one arc of humans, one arc of Turians, one arc of Asari, one arc of Krogans and Quarians, they went to this new universe and okay, one of the arcs blew up and the other one's crash landed, and now suddenly every single planet is filled with humans, Krogans, Quarians, Turians. It's like, but these are alien planets that we are not the sentient species of this universe. Yet now we're the dominant. Yeah, it made no sense. It really didn't. And then on top of that, it was the same as Dragon Age Inquisition, where I just didn't like any of my companions. You know, and that's writing. The writing over the last decade to 2 decades has really gone in the crapper. It really has. You know, Anthem, horrible game. Terrible. Trying to think. There's been other games. It's like the writing for role-playing games as well. Starfield, the writing was horrible. The concept was great. Even Fallout 4, the writing was not spectacular. It really wasn't. I love Fallout 4. Like, I am a huge Fallout fan. You know, except for 76, which I thought was an abomination. I am a huge Fallout fan, and Fallout 4, it's just like, it was very, I love the atmosphere, I love the setting, I love the mechanics of the game, but the writing was very meh, you know? So that's what I'm interested in is, do we get the writing? Do these guys who have done it before, like Drew Capshire is writing Exodus. Drew Capshire is one of my favorite writers. I loved the Darth Bane trilogy. I loved Knights of the Old Republic. I got a ton of his books. I love his writing. So I'm very hopeful that he can bring a quality of writing back to the genre that has been lacking in writing across the board.
Worst of all, Archetype is bound to Wizards of the Coast.
Yes.
And although James Olin has allegedly received some kind of promise or oath from Wizards of the Coast for them to quote-unquote never interfere in the development process, it might very well be an oath taken upon a castle made of sand.
That's my concern. As I said at the start, I'm very hesitant to be hopeful with Wizard of the Coast involved. And I mean, I'm very hesitant for when EA is involved in something. You know, they like to interfere. They like to put their real world politics into stuff. They like to pander to special interest activists. And I'm not looking for that in my games. I am looking for good storytelling, engaging characters, and enjoyment. That's all I really want from my RPGs. It really is. You know, there's a common if you follow forums, there's this column. People were bitching about Dragon Age Veilguard, which I did not play and I will never play. And they were bitching about Dragon Age Veilguard pushing real world politics and transgender and wokeness and everything into it. And, some of the defenders come back, well, Dragon Age Origins had a gay character, therefore it was woke as well. No, that's not what woke is. It's Dragon Age Origins had, what was his name? Zephyrin or something like that. Been a long time. And he was a great character. My only complaint about him was if you did not engage in a gay relationship with him, he wanted to kill you. And I always thought that was really stupid writing because I have gay friends. I can be friends with gay people without them wanting to kill me and without me having to be gay because I'm not. So that was my only complaint about Dragon Age Origins, but the character, yeah, he was gay, but he was well written, except for that one part I told you. He was an interesting character, and you wanted to know more about him. Flash forward to Veilguard, and we've all seen the trailer where I'm non-binary. Yeah, who cares? Seriously, who cares? It doesn't sell products. It doesn't make you interesting. It's just pandering to special interests. And that's my real fear with Wizards of the Coast is just leave that shit out of this. Just give us good, compelling, interesting storylines. It's like Cyberpunk 2077. Judy is gay. You can only romance her if you play a female. She's a fantastic frickin' character. Like, she is top quality, top notch, so well written, so well scripted. She's fantastic. Her being gay, that's periphery. Her being a strong, interesting, appealing character, that's what you remember about Judy. You go back to Dragon Age Veilguard, nobody remembers that about Task or Trask or Trash or whatever its name is. No, all they know is it's non-binary and it pushes it's non-binary. So, yeah, I'm really worried about Wizards of the Coast. I really am. I won't lie.
Owlcat, on the other hand, has never made a AAA sci-fi action RPG before, which some people do in fact bring up as a point of criticism of their ability to do so. But I see it differently. Sure, that's nominally true, but what Owlcat does have under their belts is a ton of experience with very complex, deep RPGs and good storytelling in terms of branching narratives and choice. Just think about some of the details that went into the secret ending of Wrath of the Righteous, for example. And perhaps more importantly, Owlcat is young, and they project that youthful energy. On top of that, they're an independent studio, and they're beholden to no one but themselves and their customers. They have drive and passion, and they're typically obsessed with getting the lore right and being accurate in the representation of the settings they choose to make games in. These factors give them an advantage to my mind over Archetype. And finally, there's the elephant in the room, that I think again, Owlcat has the advantage in. It's hard to not associate Archetype with BioWare, and that's an association when looking back to the days of yore that could have well been a positive one, but in more recent years, it's thoroughly negative. Many people are quick to point out that the reason why Dragon Age The Veilguard failed was just because of poor writing and bland characters, but in reality we all know it was overloaded and overflowing with completely unnecessary political messaging that only a tiny fraction of people cared about, many people were indifferent to, and most people actively disliked, hence the failure of the game. I'm of the firm view that the importation of real-world ideologies and political convictions into games meant to be fun in a blatant and intentional manner to hit you over the head with it almost never ends well. And I feel with
1000% agree. I just finished saying that. I'm glad he said it.
The Archetype that I've already seen some subtle signs of it in Exodus. I worry a great deal that the unnecessary and ideologically motivated messaging that ruined BioWare in the end might be a part of Exodus. Now, I don't think that the writing will be nearly as bad as it was in Dragon Age The Veilguard, as frankly I don't think that's possible, but the danger does exist that Archetype is also far too politically motivated to just make a fun and compelling game. But I don't worry about this when it comes to Owlcat. Owlcat understands that people want fun and compelling games, and most people are not interested in being preached to or hearing about real-world politics, and they have either not had those elements in their games or have gone out of their way to make them so subtle you actually have to do detective work to notice them. And that's yet another plus point for Owlcat in terms of which game will turn out better. Ultimately, both games might turn out to be fantastic, and I do want both games to be great.
Yeah, that is my ultimate hope, is that both games knock it right out of the park and are absolutely fantastic, because there's really nothing out there. Like, I won't buy Mass Effect 5 pre-order because it's made by EA. I won't do it anymore. You know, it's like the old saying goes, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, or no, it's fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, I've been fooled numerous times by EA. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm just not. So, you know, even Cyberpunk, I absolutely adore Cyberpunk 2077. I will not step foot on CD Projekt Red's forums anymore. I just won't do it because it is just lambasted with left-wing ideology above everything else, you know, and you got these mods there that are just, they're on a power trip. You know, if you don't, they're gonna suspend you, they're gonna ban you, they're gonna mark you. And I just, you know what, at 59 years old, I'm not playing stupid games with stupid people anymore. Just not doing it. So I am really hopeful that Exodus and the Expanse both hit it right out of the park so that other developers out there go, oh, wait, see what they did? Oh, we need to do that. Sweet Baby Inc., go F yourself. EA, go F yourself. Whoa, go F yourself. We are going to focus on making good games. That's all I want.
But my reservations are just much stronger with Archetype these days than with Owlcat, as in time, I've learned to temper my expectations when it comes to the hallowed promises of OG developers and the salvation they bring, as well as their potential for unwanted political messaging. In the end, only the gods ultimately know what will become of these games, but I plan on covering both in great detail and will be following the development of both with great interest. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and if you like my videos and you like my takes, you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's much appreciated, as it really helps out the channel, and I'll check you out for the next one. Take care.
Alrighty, so that was a really good video, actually. I actually agreed with 90% of what he said. And I share some of the concerns he has. Now, I have a little different view on Archetype. My concern, as I've said throughout this video, is Wizards of the Coast. I'm not really concerned about the OG developers. I think they left EA for a reason, and this is their come to God moment. If they can pull this off, they're back in the game. If they don't, they're done. So I'm not concerned about the concerns he had so much for them. I think they are driven to bring us the best possible game they can make. And from the dev diaries and everything I've read and all the interviews and everything, I think that's what they are determined to do. Now, I'm a little concerned when I see those the Exodus stories videos that I don't bother showing on my channel, because, you know, the ones with the developers in furry mode, it's like, yeah, no, I'm not touching that crap. That gives me a little bit of pause. But otherwise, I really hope Exodus and the Expanse. We don't have a lot of information on the Expanse yet. That's why I kind of have to focus on on Exodus, but I will be playing both of them. I will be updating everybody constantly on my channel about both of them. And if I find another game that really sparks my interest, I'll be doing that one too. But these are the two main games that I have going forward that really, really spark my interest coming out. And then there's Mass Effect 5, which, as I said, I will not be pre-ordering. So I will wait to see what like not IGN, not GameSpot, not any of those guys have to say, what players have to say, because a number of players are going to buy it. I will wait to see what the players have to say, and then if I play it, it'll be from that, because I don't want to play another Andromedas. I don't. If Mass Effect 5 is another Andromedas, I'm done. Not interested. And then the other two games that have my interest, but I haven't really gotten a lot of information on yet, is the Witcher 4, which, you see hints of what we're talking about here, of that company going down that rabbit hole. So we'll have to wait and see. And then there's Cyberpunk 2. I love Cyberpunk. I'm like such a huge fan, but if Cyberpunk 2, if CD Projekt Red forces first person perspective in Cyberpunk 2, I won't be pre-ordering that one either. It's like, in this day and age, there's no excuse for it. Players should be able to make the choice for themselves if they want third person or first person. So anyway, that was this video. I thought it was an interesting topic. I wanted to run this video and give you my viewpoint, went a little bit more into the politics than I had intended, but he brought it up and I can't argue with him. I really can't. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel still, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders, and I do appreciate it. Just hit the subscribe button below. Costs you absolutely nothing. Takes 1 second. Always feel free to leave a comment. I encourage everybody to leave a comment. Not only does it get us interacting, but it really does help me with the YouTube algorithm and getting more eyes on my videos. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.